were progressing, you know, colleagues were losing their job, and we're hearing of deaths of, you know, colleagues from the UK, from everywhere else. People were losing their lives. And then we started attending funeral services by Zoom, of friends and even some family members who died through the COVID. There was hunger. In addition to what Kofo said, I happen to be a trustee and a co-founder of Foundation for Refugees Economic Empowerment in Nigeria. And we, you know, did a lot of fundraisers to try and feed people, especially during the lockdown when people couldn't get any food or money, especially those that depend on day-to-day income. And of course, with time, we've seen a lot of unrest, conspiracies, inequalities that are now coming to the fore, and, you know, blatant stupidity sometimes. There's been embezzlement, people that have used the, you know, the pandemic as a way of getting more money. There's a lot of corruption and injustices. But also in that is the positive that has emerged. It has allowed us to slow down as humans. Some of us have had time to take stock, and we are now beginning to set our priorities. You know, we know, okay, is this actually important? Is that important? Do we need to declutter and make things simpler? We've seen bravery, we've seen doctors, you know, and nurses who have worked hours on end to keep people alive. I know of my friend Tony, she was working on a COVID ward. And from our group chat, you know, sometimes when things have been very hard, she will connect with our classmates to let us know how hard things have been. Love emerged, people have cared. You know, we've seen people have shown extraordinary wisdom. There's been solidarities and then the innovations. Now we are able to do conferences, you know, via Zoom. Who would have thought of this, that we'll do international conferences online 2-3 years ago? We are attending weddings, birthday parties, meetups, and, you know, there's a new reawakening that this has come, and then justice and thinking of how we can, you know, improve equality. So it's not all bad. And in thinking about, you know, mental health and what we can do to prepare for mental health, or to prepare for our mental health for the next pandemic, hopefully we'll never see another one in our lifetime, I would like to define mental health. And I would like to say one thing, there's a caveat, there's really no consensus, but the WHO definition is this, and that mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own abilities and can cope with the normal stresses of life. The person can work productively and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. So if you have this, then you have good mental health. Mental health includes our emotional, our psychological, and our social well-being. So it's not just psychological. It includes, you know, how we interact with others. It affects how we think, how we feel, how we act, and it also determines how we handle stress, how we relate to others, how we make choices. Mental health. Mental health is important at every stage of our life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. It's actually quite important from the child the woman is pregnant. There is a Nafisat. Okay, thank you. Can you all hear me now? I'll need a thumbs up. Okay. So mental health is important at every stage of our lives, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. And it's not just even when a person is born. We have to start thinking of that person's mental health from when the mother is expecting her or him. There is also some pertinent questions. And this is there really a difference between our mental and physical health? Or are we able to have one without the other? We know that people who have depression, for instance, are more liable to heart disease. We know that people with mental illness diagnosis are more likely to have cardiovascular disease. A woman who is pregnant, who has mental illness, is more likely to develop eclampsia. So there's such an interaction between mental illness or our mental health and our physical health that sometimes we're not sure if there's actually any difference. One impacts the other. And there is no health actually without mental health. Everything comes together. And in its broadest sense, well-being encompasses both the physical, the mental, and the social domains. It involves being happy, feeling fulfilled, expressing positive emotion, functioning well, both mentally, socially, and physically. So it's not just in the mind, it also affects our functions. It's also multidimensional. There's also a multidimensional concept of mental health. So, when you think of depression, we need symptoms such as anhedonia. That is when you do not feel any joy or any enjoyment whatsoever. And therefore, if we have, good mental health, we'll then have symptoms of hedonia where we have joy and we have emotional vitality with positive feelings towards one's life. And also, major depression, for instance, the person who is depressed is slowed down and is not able to function properly. And therefore, we'll think of good mental health as consisting of symptoms of positive functioning. But we also know from research that they are actually not mirror opposites, as this multidimensional concept suggests. Okay, so I think we have a bit more understanding of what our mental health is. And what I find most interesting is the idea of flourishing as a way of describing our mental health. So flourishing, as in complete mental health, will refer to the experience of life as going well. And it's a combination of feeling good and functioning effectively. So it's not just the mind, it's also the physical. And that is the one that seems to appeal to most people. And there's less emphasis, when we think of flourishing, there's less emphasis on pathology, and there's more emphasis on understanding what we need to do to help us flourish. So in looking at flourishing, the key research is the one pulled together by the Foresight Project. It's a UK government-funded project, and they published their finding in 2008. And it synthesized research from about 400 international scientists and explored the challenges for improving mental well-being of the whole population. And what's the key finding from that is that, one, happier people can add an average of 7.5 years to their life just by being more happy and more positive. And there are some 5 ways that I'm going to talk about later imminently. And those 5 ways have been shown to improve personal sense of well-being across the lifespan, regardless of starting point in mental health. So it's never too late to start. We can start from today to start using any of those 5 ingredients. The higher the level of well-being, the more likely a person is to be in work or full-time education. So it doesn't matter where you're starting from. If you can use any of these 5 ways that I'm going to explain later, we'll find that you are more likely to be able to function well, and you are more likely to be able to keep learning. So what are the 5 ingredients in the well-being soup? And the reason why I used the soup analogy is because they mentioned the 5 ways to well-being, but they didn't talk about the chicken pepper soup, which I know is the only tried and tested treatment for very bad flus. So I thought I'll add that to it. So the 5 ways that has been developed through the culmination of all those research is that if we connect, if we take notice, if we keep learning, if we remain active, and if we give, we are likely to maintain our mental health and well-being. So I'm going to explore that just a little bit more. So giving, helping others, charity, those are different ways in which we can describe it. And the idea is that if we go out of our way, we are helping other people. But not just that, the joy we give others also helps us and keeps us happy. And Hupert in 2008, as part of the Wellbeing Project, found that reduced mortality in those who help or support other people. Acts of kindness is also associated with increase in well-being. So if we are kind to others, we realize that actually we also improve our own well-being. So a smile, a kind word, offering our time, offering our money to support others, teaching, volunteering, especially in older people. So even when we've retired and we're no longer working, the normal 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 as in Nigeria, still having something to do, like volunteering in, there was one of my elderly auntie in London who, even at 85, was still volunteering in the visits. The social services have supervised visits for children and families who are broken. And she will then sit as a supervisor, and she, derives so much joy from being able to do that. And it is associated with reduced cognitive decline. It is associated with positive well-being and better understanding of the meaning of life. But in thinking of charity to others, I always say that charity actually begins at home. And when you think of helping others, we also need to think about how we can help ourselves. So first and foremost is rest and relaxation. Life can be quite a huge burden. And just preparing for this conference, I know how stressful it has been for my friend. But taking time out, and I hope she will do that later today, and for all of us as well, to rest and relax. Those are ways in which we can help ourselves. So relaxation can be done through many ways. We can just take time out to breathe. Good deep breathing is known to help reduce stress. We can ensure that we are sleeping properly. We can ensure that we're eating well and healthily. So making sure we're getting all our different colors of food, different kinds of food in adequate and normal proportion. I know one of our colleagues is going to talk about that later. Adequate fluids is essential. Creating a very good work-life balance. So it's not just all work. There needs to be time for play and time for resting and time for connecting with other people. Taking care of our physical health is also ways in which we can help ourselves. And I know Yomi is going to talk about that later as well. Providing nurturing environment and caring for our children now are ways in which we can prepare for the future. Because if we don't care for our children, if we don't look out for them, ensure that they are healthy, that they are adequately nourished, that they are receiving responsive care, that they are safe and secure, and that they have opportunities to learn, we might find that we'll struggle as later on as we are growing older, because then they will become problematic for us. So these are ways in which we can, help ourselves. And if you remember from my last slide, I looked at sleep. I highlighted sleep, and sometimes people say, do I really have to sleep that long? And I wonder, is sleep overrated? I don't know if any one of us has listened to Professor Matthew Walker or read his book, Unlocking the Power of Sleep and Dreams While We Sleep. He has noted from his research that sleep is pivotal for human health, for well-being, and for longevity. And he advocates that we carve out a non-negotiable 8 hours of sleep opportunities in any 24 hours. He has found out, and there are other researches that corroborate that as well, that insufficient sleep has devastating consequences, not just on our physical sense of refreshment in the morning, but it's found to have lead to a host of illnesses such as cancers, hypertension, even diabetes, and it can compromise our health and safety. So if you haven't had adequate sleep, for instance, and you're trying to drive to work, you're less likely to pay attention and you're more likely to end up in an accident. It affects our productivity, and it also affects our quality of life. And there are 5 things that we know can help us sleep better. The key to sleeping well, the most important, is actually regularity. So having a bedtime and having a waking up time so that we can work towards that regularly. Darkness is important for sleep, especially in our current dark deprived society where there is artificial lights everywhere. And even when we turn off the lights, we still turn on the ones on our screen. And the blue light on our screen messes up with our brain, so understanding of light and day, and then we're not able to sleep. Coolness is also important. Some of the things that helps us sleep is if our temperature, the body temperature drops just a little bit, and that will help us sleep better. So ensuring that we sleep in a cool room is important. We also need to feel comfortable to be able to sleep. So avoiding things that will make us feel bloated at night. So eating our dinner early, avoiding fried or spicy food late in the night. All those are ways in which we can ensure that we sleep well. Avoiding caffeine and alcohol can also help us sleep better. And one of the key, of course, as a perinatal psychiatrist, I thought I needed to touch on this. And it is one of the key ways in which we can prepare for our own mental health and the mental health of the unborn. We know from research that pregnancy, delivery, and mental health is an hazardous mixture. So if we can provide support for the mother, if we can provide that tender loving care and understanding and enhance our well-being, we know we can prevent mental illness in the unborn child. And we can also protect the mental health of the family and of the community. The small graph there just shows the result of a study by Kendall et al. In 1987, which shows equivocally that the childbirth period is linked to development of mental illness. And we can see that spike is the admissions into psychiatric ward, which went up by more than 20 times in the population of childbearing women. So taking care of women, ensuring that they have adequate service to look after their mental health during pregnancy and delivery is one way in which you can protect the mental health of the population. While looking at aging and retiring, a lot of emphasis is on wealth accumulation, transition into retirement, and enjoying the retirement. And I know one of our colleagues is hopefully going to talk about that today, but sometimes I wonder, is it that simple or is there more to it? The more to it that we also need to think and consider is how we cope with change. Joy, resilience, humor, laughter, play, showing gratitude and looking at those little positive things of daily life, finding the silver lining in any situation. So if you remember my second slide, when I talked about the negatives that we've seen with the appearance of COVID, I also was able to bring out some of the silver lining of, having to slow down and having to take stocks. And when we're thinking of changing, we want to take, daily actions, little actions, but consistently. When things are difficult, we want to also learn to accept those things that we cannot change. We want to be able to express our feeling and recognize them and seek help if necessary. Our spiritual health is also important in enhancing our mental health. We need to think, as we are growing older, of the emotional support network, our children, our family, and the sort of service that JBS provides in Nigeria is also able to provide that support network for us. So the second ingredient is being active, moving, exercising. Some of my patients were saying, "Oh, because of the lockdown, I've not been able to exercise." I said, "But you could dance. We can still dance in our houses. We can play music. We can move when we're cleaning the house." Or they'll say, "Oh, it's too hot in Qatar, so we can't go for walks any longer. We can go up and down the staircase in our houses." So exercising and any physical activity can improve mental well-being in later life. And regular physical activity leads to better sense of well-being. It reduces our stress, and it can protect us against developing illnesses such as anxiety and depression. Even gentle stretching, toning, and gentle exercises like yoga which are considered to be low impact exercises, actually can also increase our psychological well-being. And there are neurobiological mechanisms for this, which I'm going to leave to Yomi to discuss in his talk. The third ingredient is being aware and taking notice. So not just going through life, like the hamster on a wheel, going round and round, but, stopping to pay attention to not just what is going on inside us, but what is going on around us, both with other people around us, with our family, and with the physical environment. So being in a state of mindfulness can predict positive mental well-being. And a study of cancer sufferers found that mindfulness results in about 65% improvement on mood and about 35% reduction in stress symptoms. And mindfulness can be trained, and they have impact on other aspects of our well-being, such as in our nutrition, so mindful eating, our emotional intelligence, our relationship with others, and mindful leaders are usually better leaders as well. I want to take the opportunity to, today is the last day of October, and to let us know that October is a Mental Health Awareness Month. And that green ribbon signifies that I care. You can talk to me and I'll listen without judgment. So the theme for this year's mental health awareness is, are you okay? Are you okay? Because we know that if we say, oh, how are you? Are you okay? Most people are just likely to say, I'm fine, because that's what we all do. But asking it a second time with a change of tone might help that person, open up to you. And part of the theme for this year also is improving investment in mental health care and improving access. So taking notice and being aware, when you're driving, maybe in Lagos with the traffic jam, coming back from work, instead of stressing over it, you can see the sun, the sunset, and appreciate that instead. You can reimagine it as, wow, there's so many people around here, you see. So there are many ways in which we can use this to improve our health. And the fourth one is for us to keep learning and to embrace the idea of lifelong learning, to travel. I know that Toyin is an advocate of travel, to write and to teach, because when you write or you teach, you also have to learn because you need to research it. There's a myth that says that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's a damaging myth that one is unable to learn new things after a certain age. But the fact is that everyone is capable of learning new things. Anyone at any age can thrive in new environments. And that picture is that of my father-in-law, Zainab Imam, and my youngest daughter. That was taken about 10 years ago. Baba was 84 at that time. And he would travel, from Nigeria to places on his own. He was standing straight without he doesn't use any sticks. He kept, his physical health, and his mind was extremely sharp. Why I brought this picture was, I think that was the time I introduced him to the phone, the smartphone. And he just wanted the brick one that he was used to, or the normal phone with the rings. And I was telling him, Baba, you like puzzles and you like solitaire. It's in that phone. And Baba got interested. And by the time he died 6 years ago at the age of 88, he was using everything that we all use in social media, everything that was available at the time. And, he could connect with all of us. And he was a very, very happy elderly man by the time he passed away. And that's, so it's not too late to learn anything new. And the last but not the least of the things we can do to maintain our well-being and prepare for the next pandemic is to stay connected. We should stay connected with friends, with our families. We should build new relationships, build new friendships. We should spend time with others. I know we need to socially isolate, but there are so many ways in which we can spend time with others. The world is now a village, that we don't need to isolate ourselves, even with the lockdown or with social distancing. We can still continue to connect through so many avenues that has been developed. We can volunteer to help others. We can join a support group if we're strongly. The social media is there. I know it has its negatives, but it also has its positives. There are now video calls, and we can encourage social distance connections. In the past 6 months, I've had Zoom meetups with my secondary school mates. We've had Zoom meeting as a class group from my university. I've attended weddings. I've attended birthday parties. During the Eid, we had a marathon Zoom where everybody was joining in from around the world. And it was one of the most lovely experiences, actually, that I've had. So we should stay connected. There's the very interesting Harvard study of adult development, and I think it's now in its 80th year. It's the Grand Study. And what it did was to follow up 724 Harvard graduates. And I think as at 2015, there were still just about 60 of them remaining. And this study was also running in tandem with the Gleek study. And that was studying 456 disadvantaged, non-delinquent inner city youths who grew up in the Boston neighborhoods. And they were comparing these people. And what they found out actually that it didn't really matter where you grew up from. It didn't matter what social class or what education you had. The key things are that those who are socially connected, they lived longer. They are happier, they are physically healthier. And the quality of the close relationship matters more than the numbers. So even if you have, few friends, but very meaningful few friends, that's more important in enhancing your mental health. And although I know it's frowned upon in our society, they also found that actually going for a divorce is better than remaining in a high conflict marriage. And they also found out that those who were most satisfied in their relationship at the age of 50 years were the happiest at the age of 80 years. And it didn't matter whether they were Harvard graduates or whether they were people that grew up in the very poor neighborhood of Boston. And the take home from that biggest study and from every other thing that I've read is that longevity and happiness is the biggest predictor of longevity and happiness is the quality of our connections, because that will then, seep and enhance every other aspect of our lives. And that's me. Sorry for the mix up with the sounds in the beginning. And thank you so much for listening.